NFL season is right around the corner, and rookies have started reporting to their training camps with their veteran counterparts joining shortly. Lots of young players with high hopes and some with high expectations, including #1 overall pick Caleb Williams. Now, the Bears quarterback is favored to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, followed by Jaden Daniels of the Commanders and Cardinals receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. Chiefs receiver Xavier Worthy, the 28th pick in the draft, is next at 15-1. Obviously, you guys saw that Dan Orlovsky is now here. All right, guys, we've seen rookie quarterbacks as of late be able to make an immediate impact, most recently with CJ Stroud in Houston. So, Dan, do you think that Caleb can have a Stroud-like impact?
I don't see it, Christine. A couple things. Number one, we've had what CJ did last year was historically in the conversation for the greatest rookie season a quarterback has ever had in the NFL. It's like comparing everybody to Patrick Mahomes. It's not fair. Number two, there's only been 5 quarterbacks in the NFL as rookies to throw for over 5,000 or 4,000 yards. Excuse me. CJ was one of them. Cam Newton another, Andrew Luck another, Justin Herbert. So it's a very rare thing, and CJ only threw for 4,100. It wasn't like he, eclipsed it by a ton. I think there's 2 main reasons why I sit there and say, while Caleb can have a really strong rookie year, it's unrealistic to think, let's go do what CJ did. Number one, CJ came from a much more ready X's and O intellect football-wise. When he was at Ohio State, Ryan Day, they ran a ton of pro-style stuff when it came to formations, personnel groupings, action after the snap, and pass game. So CJ stepped into a system with Bobby Slowick that he had a lot of recall from college of and really good understanding of how pass game concepts were going to marry with each other. Caleb does not come from that. While Lincoln Riley's brilliant and his offense is brilliant, it's very different than what he's going to run in Chicago with Shane Waldron, who's their offensive coordinator. It's from the Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay tree. Caleb comes from the offense with Lincoln Riley at USC, where it's RPO-centric, spread out, tempo, how many plays can we run, one-read stuff. And I think he's smart enough to get to where CJ did, but he doesn't have that baseline foundational starting point. So it's unrealistic to think that CJ's just going to step in and all of a sudden he's going to hit the ground running, or Caleb's going to step in and hit the ground running the same way that CJ did, because he doesn't have the same foundation, intellect and football-wise, the way that CJ did coming out of Ohio State.
Well, I would answer it the other way, and I know what Dan is saying. Although Riley had 3 quarterbacks who's been successful in the NFL, he had Hurts, Mayfield still starts, and obviously Murray out there in Arizona. Stroud's last game in college is a game that Caleb Williams has not had, because his last game in that bowl game against Georgia, he wasn't good in the game. He was tremendous in the game. He scored 40-something points, and they should have won. And the kid missed the field goal, and they would have beaten Georgia, who the following week scored 70 points against TCU. So, Ohio State could have won that championship. So I think because of that and what he did at the end is a factor. And the other thing that I would say, I'll let Dan handle the X's and O's because he's an expert at that. The other thing I would say is the teams. Stroud goes to Houston in a division that is not a great division. Indianapolis had a new quarterback. Obviously, Jacksonville, Lawrence took a step back, and Tennessee is, quarterback issues for them. He goes to Chicago, where there's Detroit, which is a very good team, and Green Bay. So he goes to a team where is got some good teams that got some balance in it, while Stroud went to a team in which its division was wide open, which I think allowed Stroud to sort of confront the division and have more success quickly. And Williams is going to have to play out the Lions a couple times. He's going to play the Packers twice. Yeah. And that's going to be something that I think it's going to curtail him a little bit from a development standpoint.
Yeah, Mad Dog, 2 things. So CJ's season was absolutely remarkable. It was also a little bit of a mirage. I have said this. Ironically, a lot of what he did was on 3rd down. That's not normal in the NFL, especially that early of an age. They weren't good, Houston, offensively. On 1st down, they would try to run the football. They were terrible at it. So it's even more of an impressive accomplishment what CJ did last year, because he did so much damage on the 3rd down. Here's my point with the Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud impact. Houston goes to the playoffs. Do we have the Chicago Bears schedule by any chance? Because the Bears schedule, their final 8 games, Mad Dog, to your point, are brutal. And I think for the Bears to have a chance, the first 7 weeks, okay, if they can get to the bye sitting at, realistically 4-2, they have a shot to have meaningful games in December. I think their two really incredibly difficult games are Houston and the Rams. But I think Tennessee, Indy, Carolina, Jacksonville, those have the chance.
Yeah,
have the chance. But their next three after the bye, Mad Dog, they play like San Francisco, they play Minnesota, they play Detroit, they play Green Bay. I mean, their final 8 games of the season are brutal. So if they want to have a chance if Caleb wants to have this chance to have this impact and they want to be playing games in December that are meaningful, I think by Thanksgiving, they got to be 6-3 to survive their final 8 games.
Now, it's an easy schedule, Dan. Excellent job. You're right. They could go 4-2, but with those first 6 games, no games against the Lions and no games against Green Bay, those are 4 tough games. Listen, you're asking a lot. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them. The coaching situation, that coach is under a little fire. They got to win a little bit this year.
Let me give you, so after the bye, we just showed their 6 games. After the bye, they play Washington, Arizona, New England. So again, they got a chance. Those are 3,
Easy.
But then let me give you their final 8. It's Green Bay, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay.
Tough. I'll tell you though, that schedule is doable outside of the division games. They got those 4 tough division games. You're 100% right, Minnesota.
Their first 9 games.
But those other games are not that bad, Dan. You know, Washington, Seattle, Carolina, Jacksonville, Tennessee. I mean, they have a chance to have a pretty good year. You're right, though. To have the year that Stroud had is asking an awful lot. I'm with you 100%.
Do you think that Caleb Williams will lead the Bears to the playoffs this year?
I don't, Christine. I think that a win for the Bears organization is them to be playing meaningful games in December. Those final 4 games that I ripped off, the Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay stretch, for those games to have meaning, that we're sitting here having a conversation and they're in that, hey, they're 7-6 type of world, and can they find a way to go 3-1 in their final 4 games and get into the playoffs or something like that? Their defense, I still believe, is going to be the defense that we saw in the back half of the season. I don't believe that they'll be the number 1 defense in the NFL like they were points per game wise in the final 10 weeks or 8 weeks of the season, but I do think it'll be a top 7, top 10 unit. I think for this offense to be a playoff caliber offense, Keenan Allen's got to stay healthy. Rome Odunze's got to play like a top 10 pick at wide receiver. And it's really like when we talked about those 5 quarterbacks that had those 4,000-yard seasons and kind of flirted with the playoffs, so to speak. It was Herbert. He's an in-structure quarterback. It was CJ Stroud. He's an in-structure quarterback. It was Andrew Luck. He was an in-structure quarterback. And that's kind of what they were known for coming out of college football. As talented as CJ is in that, or Caleb is in that, Caleb is known for the wow plays and the jaw-dropping plays, the uncoachable plays, ones that we're watching on screen right now. And I think that how much he can get away with doing that in the NFL will determine in how quickly, realistically, can they get into the playoffs or not.
Well, one thing, I can't get that Notre Dame game out of my head where last year Williams was absolutely not bad. He was historically bad, and that's a huge rivalry game. But the other thing I would say, Danny, to your point, they're no better than 3rd in the division.
Correct.
Green Bay. And so if you're 3rd in the division, that makes it awfully hard. You could have said last year Houston would not have been 3rd in their division. So if you look at Dallas, Philly, San Francisco Rams, the NFC South winner, and Green Bay, Detroit, there's 7 teams. There's only 7 who make it. So who are they better than? Forget the NFC South. Somebody's going to make the playoffs out of that division. Who are they better than? Rams, Niners, Cowboys, Eagles, Green Bay, or Detroit? Which team are they better than?
They're not. And you got to put Seattle in that conversation as well, Mad Dog. So I agree. Again, I think it's realistic for us to say meaningful December games more than playoffs.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for once, Danny and I agree on something. I think he's 100% right.
Good.
How about
That's
that?
really good.